Help me, he broke my ribs. Please, Jamal, I think I'm dying.
The bathroom door splintered near the handle. Each crack of wood sent shockwaves through Aishat's shattered ribs, stealing what little breath she had left. She was curled on the cold tile floor, phone clutched in trembling fingers, blood dripping from her split lip onto the screen. "Open this door, Aishat." Caleb's voice was thick with scotch and rage. "Don't make me break it down." Another kick, the wood groaned. Aishat's vision swam. She tried to focus on her phone, tried to type her brother's number. Her thumbs slipped across the glass, leaving smears of blood. The pain in her side was blinding. 3 ribs broken, she was sure of it. Maybe more. She couldn't breathe without feeling glass shards in her lungs. "Help me, he broke my ribs. Please, Jamal, I think I'm dying." She hit send before checking the number. Couldn't check. The door frame cracked loudly, wood splitting near the lock. 30 seconds passed, the phone buzzed. But the message wasn't from Jamal. It was from a blocked number. "Who is this?" Korean characters stared back at her. Wrong number. Aishat's heart stopped. This was it. She was going to die here on this bathroom floor because her shaking hands had failed her at the worst possible moment. "I'm going to count to 3, Caleb roared. With nothing left to lose, Aishat typed back to the stranger. "I dialed the wrong number. I'm sorry. My husband is killing me. I just wanted my brother to know where to find my body." She let the phone fall from her hand. It clattered on the tile. Her vision was darkening at the edges. She could taste copper, blood from somewhere inside. The phone buzzed again. Aishat grabbed it with the last of her strength. 3 words in English this time. "I'm on my way." 5 miles away in the VIP section of the Lotus Room, the air smelled like expensive whiskey and cigar smoke. Men in tailored suits conducted business in hushed Korean, their voices barely audible over the ambient music. Min Jun Kang sat in a private booth, a glass of sparkling water untouched on the table before him. At 56, his hair was almost entirely silver with only a few defiant black strands at his temples. The contrast was striking against his olive skin. Tattoos crawled up his neck, traditional Korean dragons that disappeared beneath his collar, symbols of a past he'd never fully escaped. He wore a black suit that fit like it had been sewn onto his body. Beneath the expensive fabric, his frame was all controlled power. Broad shoulders, defined muscle, the body of a man who still trained like he had enemies to fight. Because he did. His phone vibrated, the personal one. Only 5 people in the world had this number. Min Jun frowned, picking it up. His expression didn't change as he read the first message, but something shifted in his eyes. Something cold and violent. "Help me, he broke my ribs." He assumed it was a wrong number. A trap, maybe. The Russians had been probing his territory lately. Then the second message came through. "My husband is killing me. I just wanted my brother to know where to find my body." Min Jun froze. The noise of the club faded. In his mind, he heard a different voice. His sister Soo Jin, 20 years ago, leaving a voicemail he'd gotten too late because he was in Seoul closing a deal. "Appa, he's going to kill me this time. I can't." The message had cut off. He'd found her 3 days later. Her American husband had beaten her to death in their suburban home. The police called it a domestic dispute. The case went nowhere. Min Jun had handled it his way. He stared at the text from the unknown number. It could be a trap, could be the Russians setting up an ambush, could be anything. But Min Jun Kang didn't take chances with fate. He turned to his right-hand man, David Kim, who stood nearby monitoring the room. "Trace this number. Now, GPS location in 30 seconds. David didn't ask questions. He pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen. "Tracking. It's residential, Hills area. 402 Oakwood Drive, registered to a Caleb Thorne." Min Jun stood, buttoning his suit jacket. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Thorne, the corporate lawyer. "The same," David confirmed. "Get the car," Min Jun ordered. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the ambient noise like a blade. "Bring Marcus and 2 others, armed." He looked down at his phone and typed 3 words in English. "I'm on my way." The door to the bathroom finally gave. The lock tore free from the frame and Caleb Thorne stood there, red-faced, eyes glassy with rage and alcohol. At 6'2", he filled the doorway completely. "Who are you texting?" he demanded, stepping into the small space. He looked massive, a looming shadow over Aishat's broken form. She tried to scoot backward, but her spine hit the porcelain tub. "Caleb, please, I can't breathe." "You'll breathe when I say you can." He grabbed a handful of her natural hair. She'd been growing it out for 2 years, and dragged her out of the bathroom. Aishat screamed, the sound tearing from her throat. He threw her onto the hardwood floor of the hallway. The impact jarred her broken ribs and white-hot lightning shot through her nervous system. She curled into a ball, protecting her head. "You ungrateful bitch," Caleb muttered, undoing his belt. "I give you everything. This house, the car, the clothes, and you disrespect me." He raised the belt. Aishat squeezed her eyes shut. Ding dong. The doorbell rang, cheerful, polite, completely out of place in this house of horrors. Caleb froze, belt hovering in midair. He looked toward the front door, confused. It was 11:30 at night on a Tuesday. "Who the hell is that?" He glared down at Aishat. "Don't make a sound. If you make a sound, I will end you." He adjusted his shirt, trying to compose himself. Put on his lawyer face, that charming mask he wore for the world. Caleb walked down the stairs and looked through the peephole. He saw nothing but darkness. Annoyed, he unlocked the door and swung it open. "Look, we're not interested in whatever you're." The door was kicked fully open with such force it knocked Caleb backward. He stumbled, tripping over his own feet. Minjun Kang stepped into the foyer. He wasn't alone. David and 2 other large men in tactical gear filed in behind him, spreading out with professional precision. Minjun looked immaculate in his charcoal suit, but his eyes held a terrifying calm violence. The tattoos on his neck seemed to writhe in the low light. "Who are you?" Caleb scrambled backward. "Get out of my house. Do you know who I am? I'm Caleb Thorne." Minjun didn't even look at him. His gaze traveled up the stairs. He saw a smear of blood on the banister, dark drops on the hardwood. "Check upstairs," he said softly in Korean to David. "Hey," Caleb tried to stand. "You can't just—" One of the guards backhanded Caleb across the face. It wasn't a fight. It was a dismissal. Caleb crumbled to the floor, holding his jaw. Minjun walked over to him, looking down like he was examining something stuck to his shoe. "You broke her ribs." It wasn't a question. She fell," Caleb stammered. Fear was finally penetrating his drunk haze. He recognized this man now. He'd seen him in newspapers, usually in articles about racketeering charges that never stuck. This was Minjun Kang, the head of the Kang syndicate. "Look, this is a misunderstanding. Domestic dispute. It happens." "Domestic dispute," Minjun repeated, tasting the words. From upstairs, David's voice called out in Korean. "Boss, you need to see this." Minjun walked past Caleb, ascending the stairs with measured steps. He found Aishat at the top of the landing. She dragged herself to the wall, one arm clutching her ribs, the other braced against the floor. Her face was swollen, lips split, left eye nearly swollen shut. She was a young black woman, maybe mid-20s, wearing a torn nightgown. Beautiful, even broken. Minjun felt that old ghost of his sister scream in his head. He knelt down, his expensive suit pants touching the dusty floor. He didn't reach for her, sensed she would flinch. "Did you text me?" His voice was surprisingly gentle, the harsh edges smoothed. Aishat nodded weakly. "Wrong number." "Best mistake you ever made." Minjun took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It swallowed her frame. "I'm taking you out of here." "He'll call the police," Aishat whispered. "He has friends, judges, cops." "I know," Minjun said. "But tonight you're under my protection, and nobody touches what I protect. He looked at David. Bring the car around. Call Dr. Choi. Tell him 3 fractured ribs, possible internal bleeding. What about him? David gestured downstairs where Caleb was being zip-tied by the other guards. Minjun's expression didn't change. Leave him conscious. I want him to know exactly who took her. Aishat woke up to the smell of antiseptic and sandalwood incense. She wasn't on the floor anymore. She was in a bed, a massive cloud-like bed with silk sheets that felt like water against her skin. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in her side stopped her. Careful, the voice came from across the room. 3 fractured ribs and a partially collapsed lung. We had to drain fluid. You'll be sore for weeks. Aishat turned her head. Sitting in a velvet armchair in the corner was the man from the hallway. Minjun, he was reading a file, wearing a black turtleneck now. The tattoos on his neck were fully visible, intricate Korean dragons with scales so detailed they looked 3-dimensional. His silver hair caught the low light. Where am I? Her throat felt like sandpaper. My home, Minjun said, closing the file. The hospital would have asked questions that lead to police reports. Caleb has the police in his pocket. Aishat's breath caught. He's a partner at Morrison and Hale. He knows everyone, judges, the chief of police. I know, Minjun interrupted. He stood and poured a glass of water from a pitcher on the nightstand. He brought it to her, holding the straw to her lips. Drink. She drank greedily, the cool water soothing her raw throat. Why did you help me? Aishat asked when she'd had her fill. You don't know me. Minjun sat on the edge of the bed. Up close, she could see the faint scars on his knuckles, the silver threading through the hair on his forearms where his sleeves were rolled up. Let's just say I have a particular dislike for men who hurt women. His voice was measured, controlled. What's your name? Aishat Akoro. Minjun Kang. I know who you are, she whispered. Everyone knew the Kang name. It was whispered in fear in Koreatown and beyond. Then you know what I am, Minjun said, watching her reaction carefully. Mafia, Aishat said. Crime syndicate, he corrected mildly. But yes, I'm what I am. But right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and that animal. He'll come for me, Aishat said, tears welling up. He always does. He says I'm his property. Something dark flashed across Minjun's face. He can try. Over the next week, Aishat lived in a world that felt like another country. The Kang estate was a fortress disguised as a luxury compound. She saw guards patrolling the grounds with assault rifles, cameras everywhere, security protocols that changed daily. But inside the main house, it was surprisingly beautiful. Traditional Korean architecture mixed with modern amenities, sliding doors, low furniture, art that looked like it belonged in museums. The staff spoke Korean around her. The food was unfamiliar, bone broths, fermented vegetables, sesame oil in everything. An older Korean woman named Mrs. Park brought her meals and changed her bandages with gentle efficiency. Minjun was a strange host, distant but attentive. He checked on her every evening like clockwork, always at 8 p.m. He brought her books, mostly thrillers and true crime, which made her laugh despite the pain. What? He asked one evening, seeing her smile. You brought me a book about a serial killer, while I'm recovering from attempted murder. Minjun's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, almost amusement. The protagonist survives. I thought you'd appreciate that. Aishat studied him. This silver-haired man with his tailored clothes and controlled movements. He was 56, she'd learned from Mrs. Park, 31 years older than her, old enough to be her father. But when he looked at her, she didn't feel young or broken. She felt seen. Why are you really doing this? Aishat asked. And don't say you dislike men who hurt women, there's more. Minjun was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the gardens. I had a younger sister, he said finally. Soo-jin. She married an American man against my advice. He seemed charming, successful. Then the abuse started. She hid it from me for 2 years. Aishat's heart clenched. I was in Seoul when she finally called for help. By the time I got back, he stopped. Her husband beat her to death. The police called it a domestic dispute. He got 7 years, served 4. Min-jun. I handled it my way after he was released, Min-jun continued, his voice flat. But it didn't bring her back, so when I saw your message, he turned to face her. You're not my sister, but you could have been, and this time I was here. Aishat felt tears on her cheeks. I'm sorry. Don't be, Min-jun said. You fought back, you sent that text. Most people just give up. He paused. You didn't. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. Then Min-jun's phone buzzed. He looked at it and his expression hardened. We have a problem. He turned on the large TV mounted on the wall. The local news was playing. Caleb Thorne stood next to the chief of police, a bandage on his jaw, looking like the grieving victim. My wife Aishat has been kidnapped, Caleb told the reporters, his voice breaking theatrically. She was taken from our home by armed men. We believe she's being held by the Kang crime syndicate. He looked directly into the camera. Aishat, if you're watching, I love you. I just want you home safe. Aishat felt sick. He's twisting it, making me the victim of a kidnapping. He's smart, Min-jun admitted. His jaw was tight. He's using the law against me. If I don't hand you over, the police will raid this house. They have a warrant being signed right now. I can't go back. Panic clawed at Aishat's throat. He'll kill me this time. Min-jun turned to her, his expression absolute. I'm not sending you back, but we have to leave. Now. They moved to a safe house in wine country, an old vineyard the Kang family owned under a shell corporation. The drive was tense. Min-jun sat next to Aishat in the back of an armored SUV, David driving with 2 other vehicles flanking them. Why risk all this for me? Aishat asked softly. You could go to prison. Min-jun looked at her, really looked at her. Because you fought back. And because when I look at Caleb Thorne, I see a man who deserves to suffer. The safe house was beautiful, a sprawling villa surrounded by vineyards, completely isolated. Min-jun's men set up a perimeter while he led Aishat inside. You'll be safe here, he said. No one knows about this property except David and my accountant. And what happens now? Aishat asked. Now we wait. Caleb will make a mistake, he always does. Min-jun set down his bag. In the meantime, you heal. But being isolated together changed things between them. Away from the city, away from the constant threat, they talked, really talked. Aishat learned that Min-jun hadn't chosen this life. He'd inherited it from his father. That he'd tried to go legitimate multiple times, but the system was designed to keep men like him in the shadows. That he imposed order on chaos because it was the only way to survive. Min-jun learned that Aishat had married Caleb to help her sick mother. He'd promised to pay for her cancer treatment. That she'd been a pre-med student before Caleb isolated her from her family, her friends, her church community. That she was 25 and should have had her whole life ahead of her. One night sitting on the porch watching the rain, Min-jun's hand brushed hers. He didn't pull away. I can make him disappear, Min-jun said quietly. I can make it so he never touches you again. He'll just be gone. If you kill him, you prove him right, Aishat said. Everyone will think the mob killed the innocent lawyer. I need to destroy him. I need everyone to see who he really is. Min-jun looked at her with something like respect. How? There's a safe, Aishat said. In his downtown office. He keeps leverage on everyone, his partners, the judges, videos. Min-jun's jaw tightened. Videos. He films it, what he does to me. To humiliate me, he said, to remind me that no one would believe me. Aishat's voice was steady now. If we get that safe, we don't just bury him. We bury his whole corrupt network. Min-jun stood up. Then we're going back to the city. The plan was dangerous. Caleb's house was a crime scene, watched by police. But Caleb himself was staying at the Grand Hotel downtown, surrounded by private security, playing the grieving husband for the cameras. The safe, however, was in his law office. David will lead the team to the office, Minjun explained, spreading out blueprints on the dining table. But we need a distraction. Caleb needs to think he's won. I'm the distraction, Aishat said. No, Minjun's response was immediate. Absolutely not. He needs to see me, Aishat insisted. If he thinks I've escaped you and I'm coming back to him, he'll drop his guard. He'll call off the cops to come get me personally. It's too dangerous. Aishat stood, wincing slightly at the pain in her ribs. I'm not afraid of him anymore, because I know you're watching. Minjun stared at her. This young woman who'd been broken and was forging herself into something stronger, something fierce. If anything happens to you, he started. It won't, Aishat said, because you won't let it. Reluctantly, Minjun agreed. The setup was in Central Park. Aishat, wearing a hoodie and looking disheveled, used a burner phone to call Caleb. Caleb, it's me, she let her voice shake, playing the part. I got away, I'm scared, please come get me. Aishat, Caleb's voice shifted instantly from concern to possession. Where are you? Central Park, by the main fountain, please hurry. She hung up. 50 yards away, Minjun sat in a surveillance van with David, listening through the hidden microphone on Aishat's clothes. He's coming, David confirmed, tracking Caleb's phone, and he's bringing backup, 2 off-duty cops on his payroll. Marcus, are you in position? Minjun spoke into his comms. From across the city, Marcus's voice crackled back. We're at the building, ready to breach on your signal. 10 minutes later, a black sedan screeched to a halt near the park. Caleb jumped out. He wasn't alone. 2 large men in casual clothes flanked him. Dirty cops. Caleb ran toward Aishat. When he reached her, he didn't embrace her. He grabbed her arm, fingers digging into the bruise that was still healing. You stupid bitch, he hissed, his public mask slipping instantly. You've caused me so much trouble. You hurt me, Aishat said loudly, making sure the hidden microphones caught everything. You broke my ribs. I should have broken your neck, Caleb sneered. Get in the car. We're going to have a long talk about respect. I don't think so. The voice was deep, authoritative, and came from the shadows. Caleb spun around. Minjun was walking out of the darkness, flanked by 6 men in tactical gear. But this time, he wasn't just bringing muscle. He was bringing press. Cameras were rolling. News crews had received anonymous tips about a major story breaking at Central Park. Caleb's eyes went wide. What is this? A reunion, Minjun said, stopping a few feet away. The silver in his hair caught the streetlights. Officers, arrest him, Caleb screamed at his bodyguards. That's Minjun Kang. He kidnapped my wife. The dirty cops reached for their guns, but they froze. Dozens of red laser dots appeared on their chests, snipers on the surrounding buildings. I wouldn't, Minjun warned. At that moment, the giant digital billboard overlooking the park, usually reserved for advertisements, flickered. It went black. Then footage started playing. Shaky camera work, the interior of a luxury house. Caleb's voice was unmistakable. You think you can hide from me, in my own house? The sound of a belt striking flesh echoed through the square. Aishat's screams. The reporters gasped, cameras swinging between the billboard and Caleb. Then the footage changed. Caleb in his office, counting cash. Make sure Judge Henderson gets his usual amount, and tell Commissioner Price we need that trafficking investigation delayed. More footage. Caleb discussing how to frame a rival attorney for embezzlement. Caleb threatening a paralegal who'd witnessed his abuse. The contents of the safe. Marcus had uploaded everything. Caleb stared at the screen, his face draining of color. He looked at Aishat. She wasn't cowering anymore. She stood tall, Minjun beside her like a silver-haired sentinel. You're finished, Caleb, Aishat said softly. Caleb snapped. With a roar of primal rage, he pulled a snub-nosed revolver from his ankle holster. He wasn't thinking about the snipers or the cameras. He only wanted to destroy the woman who'd ruined him. He raised the gun at Aishat. Everything happened in slow motion. Minjun saw the gun, saw Caleb's finger on the trigger, saw Aishat frozen in fear. At 56, most men were thinking about retirement. Minjun was thinking about trajectory. He moved faster than physics should allow, silver hair wild as he threw himself between Aishat and the muzzle. The gunshot cracked through the night. The bullet hit Minjun in the upper chest, spinning him slightly. But his momentum carried him forward. He crashed into Caleb, tackling him to the ground even as blood bloomed across his white shirt. They hit the pavement hard. Minjun, wounded, pinned Caleb with his knee, pressed his forearm across Caleb's throat. The gun clattered away. "You should have let her go," Minjun growled in Korean first, then English. Blood was seeping through his shirt, spreading fast. "Now you've lost everything." Caleb tried to speak, but couldn't with the pressure on his windpipe. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Real police this time, responding to the gunfire and the media circus. Minjun collapsed backward, his strength failing. Aishat caught him, cradling his head in her lap. "Why?" she sobbed, her hands pressing against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Why would you do that?" Minjun smiled weakly, touching her face with a blood-stained hand. His fingers left red streaks on her dark skin. "Because at 56, I finally found something worth dying for." His eyes closed. "No, no, no," Aishat screamed. "Someone help, please." David was already there, medical kit in hand, pressing gauze against the wound. "Boss, stay with us. Ambulance is 2 minutes out." Minjun's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Aishat. "Did we get him?" "We got him," she whispered. "It's over, he's done." "Good." Minjun's hand found hers, gripping weakly. "Call Inyan Enus." "What does that mean?" Aishat asked, tears streaming down her face. "Fate," David translated, working frantically. "Fated connection." "You're not dying," Aishat said fiercely. "You don't get to save me and then leave. That's not how this works." Minjun's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Bossy." "You haven't seen Bossy," Aishat said. "You're going to survive this, and then we're going to have a very long talk about you throwing yourself in front of bullets." The ambulance arrived, paramedics swarming. They loaded Minjun onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him toward the vehicle, his hand stayed locked with Aishat's. "Don't let go," he whispered. "Never," she promised. Behind them, Caleb Thorne was being arrested on live television, the footage from his safe playing on every screen in the city. The hospital waiting room was sterile and cold. Aishat sat in a plastic chair, her clothes still stained with Minjun's blood. She refused to leave, refused to change, refused to do anything but wait. David stood by the door, phone constantly ringing with updates about Caleb's arrest, the media firestorm, the fallout from the exposed corruption. "The police have arrested 8 judges, 12 cops and half of Caleb's law firm," David reported. "The DA is talking about RICO charges." Aishat didn't respond. She just stared at the double doors where they'd taken Minjun. Hours later, a surgeon emerged, still in scrubs. "Family of Minjun Kang." Aishat stood. I'm with him." The doctor looked at her blood-stained clothes and didn't question it. The bullet missed his heart by less than an inch. "He lost a lot of blood, but he's stable. He's asking for you." Aishat didn't remember running, but suddenly she was in Minjun's room. He looked pale against the white sheets, hooked up to monitors and IVs. The tattoos on his neck stood out starkly against his skin. His silver hair was a mess. But his eyes were open, and when he saw her, he smiled. "You look terrible," he whispered. "You got shot," Aishat said, tears streaming down her face. She took his hand. "You jumped in front of a gun for me." "I told you," Minjun rasped, squeezing her hand weakly. "I'm on my way. I don't stop until you're safe." "I'm safe," Aishat said. "He's gone. It's over." Minjun looked at the ceiling. The police will have questions about the shooting about. It was self-defense, Aishat interrupted fiercely. There were 50 cameras witnessing it. You saved my life, again. The exposure, Minjun continued. Your face is all over the news. The media will dig into everything. Your family will see. Your church. I don't care, Aishat said. She sat on the edge of his bed, careful not to jostle him. You answered when I needed you. You protected me. You believed me. I don't care what anyone else thinks. Minjun studied her face. This young woman who'd survived hell and was still standing, still fierce. I'm 56 years old. A criminal, Korean, you're 25, black, pre-med, you have your whole life. Don't, Aishat said, putting her fingers on his lips. Don't tell me what I should want. I know what I want. What's that? Minjun asked, his voice rough. To stay, Aishat said simply. With you, if you'll have me. Minjun's expression cracked, just slightly. 31 years of discipline, of control, of keeping everyone at arm's length. And this woman was breaking through it all. Your mother won't approve, he said. My mother raised me to recognize when God sends help in unexpected forms, Aishat countered. You came when I called. That's all that matters. Minjun brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Call Inyan, Enus, he whispered. Fate, Aishat whispered back. The trial of Caleb Thorne became the scandal of the decade. Every news outlet covered it. Every detail of his abuse, his corruption, his network of dirty officials came to light. Aishat testified. She stood on that witness stand, no longer a victim but a survivor. She told the world what he'd done, how he'd isolated her, controlled her, beaten her, how he'd used his power and connections to make sure no one would believe her. Caleb's defense attorney tried to paint her as a gold digger who'd seduced an older gangster. Ms. Akaro, isn't it true you left your husband for a known criminal, a man 31 years your senior? Aishat looked the attorney dead in the eye. I left my husband because he was killing me. Minjun Kang saved my life. The age difference is irrelevant. A criminal saved your life, the attorney sneered. How convenient. In the gallery, Minjun stood. He'd recovered from his gunshot wound over the past 3 months, though he moved a bit stiffer now. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his black suit immaculate. The tattoos on his neck were visible, deliberate. The entire courtroom turned. He didn't say a word, didn't need to. Everyone in that room knew who he was, what he was capable of. The defense attorney swallowed hard. No further questions, Your Honor. After the testimony, Aishat found Minjun in the hallway. You can't do that. You can't intimidate people in a courtroom. Minjun adjusted his silver cufflinks. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. He looked at her, this fierce young woman who'd survived what would have destroyed most people. No one disrespects you. Not in front of me. Not ever. Aishat's breath caught. She stepped closer. You know people are talking about us. Let them, Minjun said. His hand came up, cupping her face. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I waited 56 years to find you. I'm not ashamed. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Caleb Thorne was found guilty on all counts: domestic violence, attempted murder, racketeering, bribery, conspiracy. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His entire network fell with him. Judges were disbarred. Cops were indicted. The corruption that had protected him for years was dismantled. 6 months after the trial, Aishat stood in front of a mirror in a private room at a Buddhist temple in the hills above Los Angeles. She wore a wedding dress that honored both her worlds. White lace with intricate Korean embroidery along the hem and African kente cloth trim at the waist. Mrs. Park was helping her with the final touches, speaking soft Korean that Aishat was slowly learning to understand. You look beautiful, Mrs. Park said in accented English. Mr. Kang very lucky man. Aishat smiled. I'm the lucky one. There was a soft knock. Her mother, Grace Akoro, entered. She was a stately woman in her 50s, wearing traditional Nigerian attire in deep purple. "Mama," Aishat said. Grace looked at her daughter, tears in her eyes. "You're sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Aishat said. "He's 31 years older than you," Grace said. "Not judgmental, just stating fact." "I know. He's Korean, you're Nigerian." "I know. Grace paused. "He's not what I imagined for you." Aishat took her mother's hands. "He answered when I called. When I was dying, when I'd given up, he came. He didn't ask for anything, he just came." Grace squeezed her daughter's hands. "I know, and I watched him at the trial, the way he looked at you, like you were the only thing in the world that mattered." She smiled through her tears. "That's all a mother can ask for, someone who loves her daughter absolutely." The ceremony was small, Buddhist traditions mixed with Nigerian customs. Minjun wore a traditional Korean hanbok in deep blue, the silver in his hair making him look distinguished, regal. The tattoos on his neck were visible above the collar. When Aishat walked down the aisle, his expression cracked. Just for a moment. 31 years of iron control, and this young woman reduced him to wonder. They exchanged vows in 3 languages, English, Korean, and Yoruba. Promises to protect, to honor, to choose each other every day despite what the world thought. When Minjun kissed his bride, the small gathering erupted in applause. At the reception in Grace's church in Carson, 2 worlds collided. Korean gangsters in expensive suits sat next to Nigerian church ladies in colorful gowns. David gave a speech in Korean that made everyone laugh, even those who didn't understand the words. Grace gave a speech that made everyone cry. "My daughter texted the wrong number," she said, "and found exactly the right person." Later, on the balcony of their new home overlooking Koreatown, Aishat and Minjun stood watching the city lights. "You know people will talk," Aishat said, "about the age difference, the cultural differences." "Let them," Minjun replied. He pulled her close, his chin resting on top of her head. "I've spent my entire life caring what people think, building reputation, maintaining image, but with you," he turned her to face him, "with you, I don't care what anyone thinks." Aishat pulled out her phone, the same one from that desperate night. She'd never deleted the messages. She showed him the thread. "Aishat, help me. He broke my ribs. Please, Jamal, I think I'm dying." "Minjun, who is this?" "Aishat, I dialed the wrong number. I'm sorry. My husband is killing me. I just wanted my brother to know where to find my body." "Minjun, I'm on my way." Minjun stared at the screen. "I keep this screenshot too," he admitted, "to remind me." "Remind you of what?" "That sometimes the best things in life come from mistakes." He took the phone and added one more message to the thread. "Minjun, and I'll keep coming, for the rest of your life." He kissed her then, not gentle, not tentative, the kiss of a man who'd waited 56 years to feel this kind of certainty. When they pulled apart, Aishat touched his face. The silver stubble on his jaw, the slight wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, evidence of a life lived, battles fought, losses endured. "Teach me," she said. "Teach you what?" "To be soft," Aishat said. "You spent your whole life being hard, being disciplined, being cold to survive, but you don't have to survive anymore. You can live." Minjun's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through. "I don't know how." "Then we'll learn together," Aishat said. "You teach me to be strong, I'll teach you to be soft." He pulled her closer, breathing her in. This young woman who'd changed everything, who'd shown him that protection didn't have to mean distance, that strength could coexist with tenderness. "I don't deserve you," Minjun whispered into her hair. "Good thing I don't care what you deserve," Aishat said. "I only care what I choose, and I choose you every day." They stood there as the city breathed below them. 2 people from different worlds, different generations, different cultures, connected by a wrong number and fate. Minjun thought about his sister Sujin, how he'd failed to save her, how that failure had haunted him for 20 years. but he'd saved Aishat, and in saving her, she'd saved him. From the distance, from the cold, from a life of survival without ever really living. Ko inyanenus, he whispered. Fate, Aishat whispered back. And in that moment, standing on their balcony overlooking two worlds becoming one, they both understood the truth. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right call. Sometimes the mistakes are actually destiny. And sometimes, a 56-year-old Korean gangster and a 25-year-old Nigerian woman find each other in the darkness and create something neither of them knew they needed. Light. If this story of wrong numbers and right choices moved you, if you felt Aishat's fear and Minjun's fierce protection, let me know in the comments. What would you do if you texted the wrong number in your darkest moment? Would you trust a stranger who said they were on their way? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more stories about unlikely connections and dangerous love, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. These stories matter. Your engagement helps them reach others who need to hear them. Thank you for listening.